Welcome back to my channel. While today's video is once again about the gossipy Philippine Antics channel, this time it focuses on George. He starts by talking about some woman who is a Muslim.
No, she's Muslim, and my issue is one, she never wears a hijab.
So, George is taking the position that a Muslim woman should wear a hijab.
It's bad enough that you're on social media, because as a Muslim person, you really shouldn't be on social media. Again, this is not coming from me. That's according to the Muslim religion.
There's another assertion that a Muslim person shouldn't be on social media according to the Muslim religion. But George's opinion doesn't determine such things.
I'm not Muslim, and again, there's nothing wrong with being Muslim. But however, according to the religion, that's something you don't do.
So we have a repetition of the claim, but nothing to, back it up. That's the repetition equals truth tactic again. Next, we'll have George trying to promote his own credentials for, apparently, being an expert.
Have you guys ever read the Quran? I have. Can you guys actually recite the Shahada? I can. Have you guys sat down and spoke with an imam? I have. Have you guys been to the masjid or mosque? I have. Unless you've actually done any of that, you have no right to tell me or Heidi what Muslim religion has anything to do with anything.
Ultimately, this is just a variation of another tactic, the one that says all experts agree, but with George placing himself as the expert. George gives us his credentials. He has read the Quran. Doesn't say if that means he has read all of it or just part. Either way, it isn't as important as George thinks it is. But if it is just part, then it may mean almost nothing as far as giving his view special credence. Heck, I've read part. Reciting the Shahada is okay, but still has no bearing on being an expert on all things Islamic. It's very short, so if anyone wanted, they could probably memorize it very quickly. I have heard it many times in English, and while I never memorized the exact wording, I know the meaning. Of course, George may mean he can say it in Arabic. If so, fine. But since I'm not a Muslim, I only need to know what it means to discuss it. As for speaking with an imam, nope, I never have. But while it's a plus if you have done so, what does it prove? As a comparison, I'm not a Catholic, but I have a number of disagreements with what they teach. So I went to a priest to talk over those things. My point is that talking to an imam doesn't make you a fountain of knowledge about Muslim beliefs. Visiting a mosque doesn't prove much either. I visited a Catholic church service. No deep insights came from that. But the really bad part from George is that after making a big deal about stuff that really isn't a big deal, he declares you have no right to say anything to him about what the Muslim religion says about anything. Yet he does. I have a newsflash for George. We have every right to give our own views of what the Muslim religion has to do with things. I suppose people could try to excuse his ridiculous statement by saying he was just using hyperbole and really didn't mean it in a literal sense. Okay, that's possible. But what George continues with is even worse.
My issue is if you are Muslim and you are arguing with me, then that means I will call you out right now. You are not a true Muslim, sir or man. Because true Muslims do not do that.
They don't do social media. They don't do
television.
They
do not do social media. And they always wear a hijab.
Think about that. If you don't agree with George, that means you aren't a true Muslim. Muslims who may go to the mosque regularly, know the Shahada, read the Quran, talk to imams, people having better credentials than what George provided for himself. No, you must agree with George or you aren't a true Muslim. George might want to keep in mind that the Shahada does not say George is the messenger. George's only standard is to act like he is correct, and if you don't agree with him, you aren't a true Muslim, even if you have done far more things than he says he has done. I disagree with many people about what the Bible teaches, but I don't just declare I'm right, and if they disagree, say it means they aren't true Christians. I actually make my case based on what is in the Bible. and I listen to what they say. Sometimes I learn something new. Besides, it's not true that Muslims are not allowed to use social media or that women must wear a hijab. Sure, some Muslims say so, but many don't. I think only 2 Middle Eastern countries require the hijab, Afghanistan and Iran. And while there are countries that restrict or completely block some social media, in most cases it seems to be more about protecting the government from subversive forces rather than about Muslim teaching, and it isn't a total ban. I've searched and searched, and what I typically see from most sources is that it is how you use social media that matters, not whether you use it or not. Likewise with hijab. Most say it is not required, but it may be encouraged as a way to dress modestly, but not the only way. You see, like it or not, there are different views on what the Quran teaches, just as we have people disagreeing about what the Bible teaches. There are Muslims who not only insist they are right, but are willing to be violent against those who disagree, even if they are also Muslims. George may not be violent, but he seems to share a similar mindset of thinking he has the only true interpretation.
It is illegal to do it in the Middle East, which is our Muslim area. If they catch you, they will literally track you down, go to your house, and arrest you. I am not making things up. I'm just letting you guys know I'm actually well versed with Muslim religion and or Islam.
Our Muslim area? What does that mean? Only 20% of all Muslims live in the Middle East and North Africa combined. And as I said, they have social media in the Middle East and don't absolutely require wearing hijab. Maybe you'd be subject to arrest if you used a specific social media app that is banned or use social media in a way that isn't approved, but that isn't the same thing, is it? When I talked to the priest, I was very specific, pointing out things they taught and pointing out places in the Bible that sure seemed to contradict those teachings. His defense was pretty consistent. The main one was to talk about the traditions of the church. Well, he has a right to that view. But to me, tradition doesn't trump what your fundamental religious books say. It shows why I never bow down to the claims of experts. I do listen carefully to the justifications for what they believe, so I sure won't just accept what George says, especially since he didn't actually support things he said. With that in mind, I found it interesting how often I read Muslim sources saying the hijab does not even refer to covering the head, while others said it did. So I paid attention to why they held their respective views. Those who said it didn't include covering the head or that it wasn't required gave a lot of references to the Quran and went into a lot more detail. Their opposition didn't provide nearly as much and so weren't very convincing. Certainly possible that further study would reverse my present opinion. But so far, it seems those who say the hijab is not required or doesn't apply to covering the head have the better argument. And even if someone could say every single one of the major official Islamic sources said it did require a head covering, my reaction would still be that they need to explain those verses which seem to contradict them.
But his wife did not have a hijab on and she was dressed different. And he said something like they didn't have to. Well, that's not true. They're supposed to. It is part of the religion.
Right.
Except it is not required according to the vast majority of sources I read.
There's something that we call NPC. I'm talking about non-practicing Christians.
Yeah, you can call yourself Christian. Same
You
thing.
can call
Same
yourself
difference.
Christian, but if you're not behaving like a Christian person does, then again, I will call you out. You are not a Christian, sir.
George isn't the determiner of true Christian beliefs either. But they have both used religion to criticize others, so it is fair to hold them to religious teachings. I'm just applying their standards to them. It isn't my standard. So what do some major religions teach about gossip? Here are a couple items from the Quran. Do not concern yourself with things about which you have no knowledge. Verily, your hearing, sight, and heart, all of them would be called to account. And this one. Why do not the believing men and women, whenever such a rumor is heard, think the best of one another and say, this is an obvious falsehood? You take it up with your tongues, uttering with your mouth something of which you have no knowledge. You deem it a light matter, whereas in the sight of God, it is an awful thing. Remember the claim someone made to Heidi, saying that the Filipino pig was paid by the Philippine government? No evidence, let alone proof, was offered. yet Heidi treated it as true. This is exactly the kind of thing that the quotes above are referring to. What about the Bible? From the Old Testament, do not spread false reports, and whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool, and a dishonest man spreads strife, and a gossip separates close friends. And finally, from the New Testament, those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Also, and not only do they become idlers, but also busybodies who talk nonsense, saying things they ought not to do. There are many more, and I'm pretty sure other religions have negative views of gossip too. George and Heidi can believe what they want. They can say what they want. But they'll be held to their own standards when they go against religious teachings and be expected to back up what they say rather than just act like they have the final word. Thanks for watching, and don't let the trolls stop you from speaking out.